Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to the next chapter of my London and Brighton Gladstone project. The previous video I made about this loco covered the design process, so if you're interested in that, if you're interested in how you develop a 00 gauge locomotive from nothing, then check that video out if you'd like to. I did warn in that video that a serious moment of truth was just around the corner, and we've now travelled around that corner, and here we are ready for that moment of truth. So in the last video I created a full 00 gauge Gladstone locomotive in CAD, and since then I have printed all of the parts that I have designed, and if you look behind me there on the table you can see that they're all laid out there ready to go. I thought I had created a 00 gauge Gladstone, but looking at that, all I've been able to really create is a huge mess. So today's video is going to be putting all of those parts together for the very first time. Don't know how that's going to go. I'm going to glue them all together, I'm going to assemble the mechanism, hopefully we'll even have a working locomotive at the end of this video. Then I will go back to CAD and make any adjustments I need to, and then I will reprint everything again from scratch, and then I will sand it and apply primer and paint it. Basically everything I did with my Manning Wardle locomotive, but I'm going to try and up the stakes a little bit and try and do an even better job. So let's get started with this kit I've created. For the first time, let's try and put this together. Wow, so this is what you call daunting. This is a kit that's never been put together before, and it's a kit to which there are no instructions. So I've got to learn everything I need to learn about this kit right now, so that when this thing is nicely painted and ultra fragile, I can put it together really carefully and precisely and correctly. So no pressure at all. We've got all the parts lined up here. My first job is going to be the chassis, I think. I'm going to assemble the chassis because the pickups and the electric, the wires and such, they need to be stuck in place, and I need to let the epoxy that I'm going to use to stick those on, I need to let that go off for a little while. So let's move all of the other stuff out of the way and start with that. So I've got a few parts here. We've got the main chassis, which is actually decently heavy. I'm pleased with that. This is printed at a 100% infill. Haven't really tidied it up or anything yet, but for the final one, obviously I will. So first things first, we need to take my secondary chassis and screw that onto the primary chassis, as you can see, like that. The first two parts being screwed together. And the second screw actually goes in underneath the motor, which is quite interesting. Is that threaded? Yeah. So now we have to screw those in until they're nice and tight. Okay, there you go. So now we have a complete chassis, more or less. I mean, it's not going to work yet, but the main components of the chassis are now together. So I'm going to tidy some of these bits up, and then we'll start applying the pieces. So the first pieces that are going to go on are the pickups, and the pickups have a place for them to sit, which is there, and then there's going to be this wire, and that is going to be glued right here, and that's going to take power up to the motor. This way there's going to be a solder joint to a wire that connects to the tender, and the other wire from the loco pickups is going to solder just here. This is all in the name of making it nice and slim, so that it all fits inside the body. And then of course this piece here will be arrowlighted in place. So let's mix up some resin and let's get these stuck on. So I'm just going to be working with a really small amount of resin for this. Okay, and then I'm going to apply a small amount of this resin to the loco right here. And the reason I'm using this and not glue is because it's really good stuff. It grabs hold of stuff and it will not let it go. And while I'm messing around with pickups and such, that is really important. So that's why I'm doing it. There we go. So that was a bit fiddly, but hopefully those are now in the right position. And now I can apply a little bit more resin and put the wires in as well. Okay, So I've managed to solve this problem by just sticking these on with blue tack and holding them in place while the resin dries. So hopefully that will work. I just need to make sure everything's in roughly the right position now and leave it. Right, so my next job is going to be, while the resin is not cured, I'm going to attach the front of the smoke box door, that's this piece, to the little keyed piece that fits onto. So let's just make sure it fits. Yes, it fits. And then let's just put a tiny amount of the resin onto the door. And then ideally these pieces will be fixed together forever. they'll never come apart, which is what I want. I don't want them to drop to bits on me. Okay. And it is a keyed piece, so it should be the right way, but you just have to make sure it's straight by the looks of things. Alright, that's another piece that can go elsewhere to set. So now let's start looking at the body and applying some of the details to it. So I think the first thing to do is going to be to fit the cab windows. So these little tiny discs are cab windows. This one looks a little bit messy, so bear with me while I just trim off some of the excess material. Okay, and now that that's done, let's test and see whether the outer windows fit into the inner ones. So as you can see, that fits. It's not glued in though, obviously, so it's going to fall right back out again if I'm not careful. So that is quite a look, isn't it? Crikey. And this means that the windows are now going to be perfectly round, unlike what you could do printing that vertically. So let's now put some glue on and let's have those made permanent, shall we? Okay, that's it. Cab windows are glued in place. So let's move on and start putting the other pieces of the chassis together. So what I think I need to do now is start putting this running plate onto the body, which as you can see does fit. I need to screw that in place so that I can start putting the rest of the details on. So there we go, that is just one screw that is flush with the bottom of the running plate. There will be a second screw which holds these two together, but that also goes through the chassis, so that has to go on later on. So I think, what should we do next? Let's put some of the detailing in. So how about the Westinghouse pump assembly? Alright, so here it is. Here's the little Westinghouse. I haven't really cleaned it up that much. It doesn't matter, to be honest. But that is going to fit into the running plate like that. And then it will be glued. Okay, now I'll just try and straighten it, make sure it's in nice and even. There. And I should think that will take a second or two to harden and be secure there. So, got to be careful with that piece. But yeah, so far so good. Right, let's try and put the whistle on then. That seems like a safe move next. So here is the whistle. Again, just two locating holes for this, one in the front of the cab and one in the top of the firebox / boiler. So this should be another easy one. Okay, that is the whistle in place. Let's take a look at that. So it's starting to come together, I think, isn't it? So now let's do the safety valves on top of the dome. So we've got two of these. Okay, so same thing again. I'm going to put some glue in the holes and then try and get the safety valves put in nice and straight. Alright, and before I straighten these into a position that looks good for them to harden in, I'll put the other one in as well. Alright, I think that looks good actually. I think I accidentally managed to straighten it while I was putting the other one in. So there we go, safety valves are now part of the loco. So that's the progress so far. Yeah, looking pretty decent. Obviously I haven't tidied up the body in any way because I don't care how this looks. I'm literally just testing the way the details fit. And so far it's looking pretty decent. Alright, so I think the next step is going to be the reverser rod, which fits on this side of the loco. It comes out the front of the cab like that, and it fits into a hole just in the rear splasher there. So a bit of an awkward one to fit this, but hopefully it won't be too bad. Let's give it a try. And let's see if we can get it in without disturbing any of the other parts that I've just fitted, of course. That would not be good. Okay, there we go. Yeah, reverser rod in. So now let's do the handrails on the side of the boiler. And that is this piece. This piece looks like it could be, I don't know, brake rigging or something, but it isn't. These are the handrails. They're just print in one single piece to make them tidier. So let's try cutting them in half and then applying them carefully. Okay, and this one has a left and a right as well. So let's just try, first of all, let's just try a test fit. Let's see if we can get these to go in. There we go. So that does fit, as you can see. That looks pretty good. There you go. So that's what it looks like. Now I'll very carefully do the same on the other side. So let's do a test fit. Right, let's get some more practice at fitting these then. I'm going to try and do this in one go, using the hole in the back of the cab this time. So that pokes in there. There. So that's what it's looking like at the moment. It's coming along. You have to use your imagination a bit, don't you? Imagining it with paint and everything, but yeah, I think that is definitely coming along. Everything so far fits. Okay, so I need to leave this to sit for a moment now just to let those parts go off. So I thought I would start assembling some of the other parts. For instance, we've got the cab here, which needs to have the regulator separately fitted to it. And as I mentioned in the last video, I'm going to do that using some wire. So I'm just going to cut off quite a generous length of the wire and stick that into the front of the cab. So I've got my little tweezers which I can grip the rod with. So apply some glue to the end of this rod. I suppose I could have done it directly really, but I think this is a bit safer. And then on goes the regulator. And then something similar has to happen with this little wheel, which is going to be glued inside the main cab. So a small length of wire again. And let's just apply some glue straight to the end of the wire. And then the wheel can go right on that. Like so. And then that will be glued inside the cab later on. So let's put those to one side. And now let's take a look at our smoke box door. It's not an entire smoke box, obviously. So now I'm going to look at putting the smoke box dart onto the front of that, which again is going to be a very fiddly job. So let's find the right part. I think this is the smoke box dart. Oh, I suppose I could put this on at an angle, or I could put it on straight. I'm not sure. Let's just check that it actually fits. Yeah, alright, that's a good fit. So little glue, and let's put that in. That's a great fit. If you've got a better 3D printer than mine, or if you're going to use a resin printer for this, you could definitely make some of these holes a bit smaller. But I've just been generous because I know that with my printers there's quite a bit of tolerance. So it's better to be safe than sorry. There. Smoke box dart attached. I think you're not going to really see that. But trust me, there is now a smoke box handle on the front of the smoke box, which is awesome. Next then, let's start looking at the buffer beams. Let's see about putting the buffers onto the buffer beams. The buffer beams are identical. The one on the front of the loco is the same as the one on the back of the tender. So I can just do this one, and if the buffers fit into this and it fits onto the loco, then I know the one for the tender will fit. So I'll just clean up the beam itself, and I'll clean up some of the buffers, and then we'll try and fit them. Right, I would say that's one of the better looking buffer beams I've done. There we go. Do you want a close-up on that? There we go. So obviously it will need some sanding and filing for the final product. But as you can see, we've got reasonable looking buffers there. And the reason the buffers are separate is just because you can print them better that way. So that's all right, isn't it? It looks pretty good. Okay, so we've got the loco back now. So what I'm thinking of doing is putting some of those little taps on the front of the smoke box into place. So I'm just going to open up those holes a little bit because this one looks noticeably a bit too small. Let's see if these fit into the holes. Yes. Yep, they do. So I'm going to put some glue on those and stick them in. All right. They are very, very annoying small pieces to fit. But as you can see, with tweezers, you can do it. So there they are on the front. We haven't got the smoke box door fitted yet because I want to put some weights inside the smoke box before I do that. Okay, so now let's fix the regulator into the cab controls. That should be quite an easy step. Not too much glue, crikey. There we go. You're not going to see that very well, I don't think, but yeah, that is now fitted. So I guess I'll have to wait for that to dry a second before I try and put that in. Yeah, that would be silly otherwise. So I guess now I can try and fit the, can I do this now? The rear beam and steps to the loco, which will fit on like that. I think this might be a mistake. I think I might have to do this once the chassis is on. But we'll see. I might have to pull this thing off again later on. But I want to do this now so that the chassis has more time for that resin to dry. But this rear beam goes flush with the back of the loco like this. And the same is going to be true of the front buffer beam, but I think we might need some resin to stick this on. But we'll see. Let's put some glue on and see what happens, and then we can turn our heads to the chassis and start putting that together properly. Okay, well that is a much better fitting buffer beam than on the Manning Wardle, which is great news. So that is more or less the loco body finished. I guess I could put the cab piece in, but I've got to be real careful not to dislodge anything from it. Let's try putting that in. So that's supposed to just slide down the back of the cab like that, which it does perfectly. So there we go, that is the loco cab inside there. Let me show you on this camera. That looks alright, doesn't it? Regulator fitted, all of the other parts on. I'm really pleased with that, awesome. And I could put the cab roof on if I wanted to, but I think I'll save that until last because it really is just glued in place. But if I hold it on, you can see roughly what it will look like. Yeah. It looks like a Gladstone, it does. All right, so let's move on then and start taking a look at the chassis. All right, so let's assemble the wheel set first of all. So I've got these very, very basic coupling rods. I might put some more detail on these at some point, but for right now, I think these will do as they are. So I've got some crank pins. These are standard Hornby crank pins. You can even buy just regular screws to use, but these have the advantage of the sort of shoulder below the head. I'll tell you one thing, I am not looking forward to painting these wheels. I'm going to have to be very, very careful, maybe more careful than I've ever been before, because if I mess that up, it's really not going to look good. We'll have to just wait and see what happens with that, I guess. Okay, there we go. So the wheel set is together, and I mean, seems to rotate on its own outside of a chassis. But now let's bring the chassis back in and see whether we've got this resin gone hard yet. The idea is with the pickups that I'm going to bend these pickups out like this, and now I can try putting the wheels into the chassis with the pickups in place, and those pickups do actually look like they're touching the wheels properly already, so that's a pretty good start, isn't it? Now it is going to be a bit awkward, it's just occurred to me, to fit the base keeper plate with all the extras on the chassis. So the order that I've done this in right now may not be the best order. So the wheels are in and they are turning quite freely. Obviously there is some resistance there because of the pickups, but there's not much I can do about that. So let me put the base keeper in. This is going to be really difficult to do while holding the loco. Screws. Gotta have screws. Alright, so there we go. Pickups are in and the base keeper is on and the wheels are turning. They're not ultra free or anything, but I don't think that's bad considering there are pickups on those wheels. So what next? I think we ought to try and start wiring this baby up. So I think we're now ready to start assembly and seeing if I can make this loco actually work. So I've got the main gear that I designed and also a little washer to go on the shaft just to keep it in the right place. And that is going to sit in here between the wheels, hopefully. There we go. And good sign, the gears are turning, so that's pretty good. I'm pleased with that. I've got this motor with some wires on it. I actually don't want the wires on it, so I'll just have to go and remove those. Okay, that is done with. So I'm going to pop the motor into its cradle like that and just check that the gears seem to mesh. And then the real test is going to be putting this bracket over the top of it all and screwing it into place, making the motor and the whole gear train complete and hopefully permanent. Okay, well the wheel set is now locked, as you can see, and hopefully this will all be absolutely fine by the time I come to solder everything together. So speaking of solder, I need to make a couple of joints now. I need to join these copper wires to the back of the motor. I need to join these pickup wires to the copper pieces, and then I need to add a couple more lengths of wires to these, to the copper pieces as well, which will then connect to the tender. So I will do that and I'll come back, and then hopefully we'll be able to test this before long. Okay, that is the soldering done then. So I've got some wires poking out the end. They're going to go to the tender and everything is hooked up to the motor. And as you can see, it's pretty nice and neat. So I think we're almost finished with the loco chassis. Obviously, one major thing is to put the rear trailing wheels into position. And these are one black, one white. So I don't know, it looks a bit hipster if you ask me, but this is all just for testing purposes. As you can see, that fits in and rotates nicely, and there is a separate base keeper plate for that, which goes right there obviously, so better screw that in now. Make that little sucker nice and secure. There we go. Alright, and now we have a rear trailing wheel. At the moment the loco is sitting forward, so it's not actually resting back on that trailing wheel, which is awesome because I haven't even put the weights in the smoke box yet, so that is looking pretty nice. So I think now the next step will be quite a dramatic one, and that is putting the body on. I think we're ready to do that now. I sincerely hope I'm right in saying that. So let's find out first of all whether the body is actually going to fit. Well, it went straight in without any problems. So yes is the answer apparently. So it's a big long screw at the front, one of these. I say big long, it's not that big, but it is bigger than the others. Let's go and get a cradle, I think. Okay, so let's sink that screw into the front. This should hold all three main parts of the body together. All right. And then we've got the peg, which is going to hold the loco to tender coupling. That fits in this hole at the back, like that. This might poke out into the bottom of the cab floor, and if it does, it will need filing off, obviously. So we've got a little bit of a poke through on the cab floor, but it's actually not that bad. And there we go. The loco is almost complete, very, very nearly. So I'm going to get some weights to put inside the front of the smoke box, as I said I was going to. So first two weights, they should fit in quite nicely. Let's push those in. Okay, so they're just in the mouth of the smoke box. So let's cut a couple more. All right, so that's another 10 grams worth of weight. Okay, that looks good. And then the smoke box door, wherever that is supposed to fit over the top of all of that. And it does. All right, that is cool. All the way on, there we go. So there is the complete loco, more or less. Well, I say complete. There are actually a couple of details left still to put on, actually. One of them is the handrail that goes over the front of the smoke box. So I guess I could put that piece on. Okay, that looks good. Okay, a little bit awkward. I'm gonna have to practice doing that for the final attempt, but that fits, as you can see. And then let's go for it. Let's put the cab roof on and see what it looks like all together for the very first time. All right, and on the cab roof goes. Make sure it's flat. So there we go. The Sam's Trains Gladstone, assembled for the first ever time. That's not bad. I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. That is not bad at all. I can't believe that I made this from scratch. So, time to assemble the tender then. Let's put the tender together and hopefully install some pickups there as well. And then we'll see about getting the loco tested, see if it runs. So I have not yet prepared all of the proper Gladstone wheels, so the tender is going to, for the time being, just have the regular Hornby 52XX wheels. I don't know if these are going to fit. Oh yeah, they should. Yeah, they do fit. Obviously that's got a worm drive on it, which it shouldn't have. And in fact, I might not be able to use that one because the base part won't fit over it. So it might just have to be a four-wheel tender for the time being, but I think that will be okay. So I think the first job with the tender is going to be to fit the pickups to the pickup shoes like this. Okay, and let's fix the pickups in the center of the shoe. I will probably make some better pickups than this for the final tender. This is just for testing purposes. Okay, so the pickups are sticking onto that, hopefully. So we'll leave that for a second. There is another piece to go on the loco, actually, that I forgot about, and since I've got some resin going, I can use that. This is the little wheel that goes inside the cab. So I need to find a way of sticking that in place. There we go. You see that? So that's the wheel. I think it will, I forget what colour now that wheel is going to be painted in the end. And let's find out then what sort of weight I've been able to manage with this loco. That's a question that has been plaguing me for a while. I have to say, I mean, it feels pretty good. I think we won't be far from 100 grams if you ask me. Ooh, not bad at all, yeah, 94 grams. So my aim was 90 to 100. I mean, 90, oh, we're going to get 95, maybe 95. So, I mean, that's all right. That's not terrible. Let's try again. Should be way up. It should be, I don't know, maybe 150 grams with the tender, maybe. So it's not amazing or anything, but not terrible. Right, I'll try and get the rest of the tender assembled now then. Okay, so while the tender bit's dry, I thought why not put this thing down onto the track and see whether it actually works or not. Now obviously, if you look at these, I mean, we've got no tender connected, so we really are just working on the pickups on the front drivers here, which aren't the best, so I don't expect it's going to be very reliable. But first things first, have we got some decent motion? Is it well balanced? So if I push it back, you can see the rear wheels are able to move like that. And if I lift up the rear wheels, can I do this without covering the lens? Lift these up, I'm able to lift these wheels clean off the track without any of the drivers coming off the track. So that's a good thing. Hopefully they won't derail though, that's the big thing. Anyway, let's put some power to it, see if it works. Oh my gosh, I just did it and it worked. Let's see. Alright, so it sounds a bit funny. There's a funny noise. I'm not sure what that would be. But it looks pretty smooth, I have to say. It looks smooth, even if it doesn't necessarily sound it. Let's see if I got the gearing right. How does it look at 50% speed? Not bad at all, not bad at all. Yeah, that looks real good at 50% speed. I just can't believe how smooth that is. Can it crawl, I wonder? Let's see if it can crawl. Oh, it looks like... Oh yeah, it's cut out, unfortunately, but it looks as though there is potential there for a good crawl. Let's see if we got some torque. Yeah, there's torque, as you can see. Seems to be there might be some slipping, yeah. So maybe I need to reduce the distance between some of the gears. Maybe that's something I should look into. And maybe that's what's making the funny noise, actually. That could be it, but yeah, overall, to say that that's running a set of 3D printed gears, pretty happy with that. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, and it will get much, much better, I expect, once the tender pickups are added. We've only got 4 wheels in the tender for this test, but obviously when the final model is made, there will be 6, and I'll be able to put a pickup on each of those wheels. So yeah, I'll sort the tender out and then we'll try it. Okay, so I didn't show you the process of the tender because I figured this has probably gone on for long enough already. But I've got 4 of the 6 wheels into the tender with pickups and some really nasty looking wires going between the two, which hopefully I will find a way to straighten out for the final version of this. But let's have a look. Okay, so it looks like one of the tender wheels is having a bit of trouble turning. But yeah, I'll have to improve the pickup situation on that, I think. But on the whole, that seems to be absolutely fine, doesn't it? That seems to work really nicely. See if the crawl's any better now. Yeah, there does seem to be a gear skipping or something. I will, I think, have to reduce the distance between some of the gears, but should be able to at least try. There we go, that was sort of a crawl. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be much much great performance there at the low speeds, so I'm going to have to look at improving that, I reckon. But there she goes. I mean, you can't say fairer than that, can you? Decent performance. So for a first test, I think that is okay. So I need to make some changes, and then I'm going to print another one, which I will paint up and hopefully do a much better job of. Okay, wish me luck.